This photograph, taken in the 1890s, is rare, not because of its age, but because of what it represents. The man you see here has Down syndrome, at a time when people with disabilities were often hidden from society, excluded from opportunities, and denied dignity. Photography was still a luxury, and yet, someone chose to capture his image, an act that speaks volumes about visibility in an era that rarely offered it. In the 19th century, medical understanding was limited, and misconceptions shaped harsh realities for those who were different. Today, we've come a long way, but this portrait reminds us of the importance of recognition, acceptance, and the simple power of being seen. Behind this quiet gaze is a truth that transcends time. Every life has value. Meet Brooklyn Supreme, the largest horse ever recorded. This photograph from 1930 captures a true giant, standing over 6 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing more than 3,200 pounds. To put that in perspective, that's nearly the weight of a small car. Brooklyn Supreme was a Belgian draft horse, bred for strength in an era when machines hadn't yet replaced horsepower. He wasn't just big. He was a living symbol of the agricultural power that built nations. People traveled from miles away just to see him, a creature so massive he turned farm fields into legends. Today, machines do the work, but this photo reminds us of a time when muscle, both human and animal, moved the world. This dramatic photo was taken in Brooklyn, 1942. At first glance, it looks like a movie scene, but it's real. A woman, driven to despair, climbs out of a window, ready to end her life. Below, a crowd gathers, while police scramble across ledges, risking their own safety to reach her. Look at the desperation in her posture, the determination of the officers clinging to brick walls. They've set up a safety net below, but they know every second counts. The Great Depression had ended, but the scars of hardship lingered, and stories like this were tragically common. This image freezes a moment of pure human struggle, a fight not between good and evil, but between hope and despair. This might look like a scene from a science fiction film, or a group of early minions, but what you're seeing is real. These are deep-sea diving suits from 1908, designed at a time when underwater exploration was as mysterious as outer space. The bulky metal helmets and thick canvas suits weren't for style, they were for survival. Divers faced crushing pressure, freezing temperatures, and zero visibility. Yet these inventions made it possible to repair ships, recover treasures, and explore the ocean's hidden world. It was dangerous, it was experimental, and it required absolute courage. Today, we have advanced scuba gear and submarines, but over a century ago, this is what bravery looked like, one heavy step at a time, into the unknown. What you're looking at isn't a movie prop. It's the face of one of the most iconic monuments in the world. This photograph, taken in 1885, shows the head of the Statue of Liberty before it was assembled in New York. At the time, Lady Liberty was still in pieces, shipped across the Atlantic from France in more than 200 crates. Imagine seeing this massive face up close, knowing it would soon tower over New York Harbor as a symbol of freedom and hope for millions. Built to celebrate friendship between nations, the statue would become much more, a beacon for immigrants arriving to a new life. Today, we know the Statue of Liberty as a whole, but this image reminds us that even the greatest symbols start piece by piece. What you're seeing here isn't a circus act, it's a protest. The year is 1897, and that figure on the bicycle, dangling high above the crowd, represents a woman. Why? Because this demonstration at Cambridge University was about something unthinkable at the time, granting women the right to earn degrees. The university had just voted against allowing women full membership, and students who opposed the idea mocked the decision by hanging this effigy, parading it as a spectacle. Below, hundreds gathered, some laughing, others outraged. It's a striking image of an era when progress met fierce resistance. Today, women not only attend Cambridge, but lead it. This photo reminds us that every right we take for granted was once a battle fought in the streets, and sometimes in the air. This simple truck might not look like much today, but in 1921, it was the future of delivery. What you're seeing is one of the first United Parcel Service vehicles, a modified Ford Model T. At the time, UPS wasn't a global giant. It was a small company with a bold idea: to deliver packages quickly and reliably in an era when mail could take days, even weeks. These trucks had no doors, no modern safety features, just determination and horsepower. Drivers navigated dirt roads and unpredictable weather, often working long hours to make sure deliveries arrived on time. A century later, UPS moves millions of packages across the globe every single day. This old Model T reminds us of a truth every success story shares: big things start small. At first glance, this Victorian photograph might look amusing, but it reveals a fascinating glimpse into the social world of the 1870s. In an era of rigid etiquette, portraits were serious business. Yet here we see a woman posing with teacups balanced on her chest. Why? Because Victorian photography wasn't always about solemnity. Sometimes it captured humor, confidence, and personality. Afternoon tea was more than a drink. It was a ritual, a symbol of status and refinement. By turning this moment into a playful pose, she defied the norms that dictated how women should behave. This image reminds us that even in the strictest of times, there were those bold enough to bend the rules and smile while doing it. This photo, taken in 1970, captures a moment of quiet power. The woman holding that shotgun is Sandra Brown, the first African-American female police officer in Oakland, California. At a time when both race and gender created nearly impossible barriers, Sandra walked into a world that wasn't ready for her and changed it. Policing in the 1970s was dangerous, tense, and dominated by men. Yet she didn't just join the force, she set a precedent. Her presence was more than symbolic. It was a statement that equality belongs everywhere, even in the most challenging roles. Today, thousands of women of color serve in law enforcement, and it started with pioneers like her. This isn't just a photograph. It's a reminder that breaking barriers often begins with one person brave enough to pick up the weight of history and carry it forward. What you're looking at is not a scene from an action movie. It's real life in 1936. That tiny figure standing on a narrow platform, high above the earth, is an airship mechanic, performing maintenance on a propeller mid-flight. No safety harness, no modern gear, just courage and a steady grip. Airships were engineering marvels of their time, but they required constant attention, even in the sky. If something went wrong, there was no emergency landing, only quick thinking and nerves of steel. Imagine the wind roaring at hundreds of feet in the air, the hum of the massive engines, and one wrong move meaning certain disaster. Today, this job would be unthinkable, but back then, it was just another day in the golden age of aviation. This photo looks like something out of a dystopian movie, but it's from 1917, during the brutal days of World War I. What you're seeing is a soldier wearing experimental steel armor, complete with a helmet, protective plates, and a knife attached to his arm, like a weapon straight out of science fiction. These designs were desperate attempts to give soldiers an edge in the hellish reality of trench warfare. Bullets, shrapnel, poison gas. Every step on the battlefield meant danger, and innovation often came at the cost of comfort or mobility. While these suits rarely made it to mass production, they represent an era when survival demanded creativity, and even the wildest ideas were worth trying. In a world torn apart by war, this wasn't cosplay, it was life or death. This is not just a mugshot, it's a portrait of courage. The year is 1961, and this young woman, Joan Trumpauer Mulholland, has just been arrested in Jackson, Mississippi. Her crime? Fighting for civil rights. At only 19 years old, Joan joined the Freedom Riders, risking her safety and her life to challenge segregation in the Deep South. She was harassed, beaten, and imprisoned in some of the most notorious jails of the era, yet she never backed down. In a time when silence was safer, she chose to speak, march, and stand with those who had no voice. Today, this image reminds us that real change is never easy, and sometimes it takes extraordinary bravery from ordinary people to move the world forward. This photograph captures something almost miraculous. A proud mother stands beside her 8 sons, all of whom served in World War II, and all of whom came home. In a time when millions of families faced unimaginable loss, this picture became a symbol of rare and overwhelming relief. Imagine the years of fear, waiting for letters, dreading the sound of a telegram at the door. Each of these men wore a different uniform, fought in different places, yet tonight, they stand together under the same roof. Behind their smiles lies the weight of battles survived, and behind hers, the strength of a mother who lived through endless nights of prayer. This isn't just a family portrait. It's a story of hope against impossible odds. At first glance, this looks like an ordinary bathroom selfie, but it's 1960, and that makes it extraordinary. There were no smartphones, no instant filters, just a heavy camera, a roll of film, and the patience to wait days to see if the shot turned out. This woman, smiling with pure confidence, captured a moment that feels surprisingly modern, casual, playful, unfiltered. In an era defined by strict etiquette and formal portraits, photos like this were rare. A glimpse of real personality breaking through convention. Today, we take billions of selfies without thinking twice. But this image reminds us, even decades ago, people found ways to celebrate themselves, one click at a time. This is Times Square, but not the one you know. The year is 1913, and this bustling intersection was already earning its reputation as the heart of New York City. Look closely, there are no towering LED screens, no yellow taxis, no digital chaos. Instead, the skyline glows with hand-painted billboards for Kellogg's Corn Flakes, Wrigley's Gum, and Egyptian cigarettes, brands that defined a generation. Streetcars rattle along tracks. Early automobiles share the road with horse-drawn wagons, and thousands of pedestrians fill the streets in their finest hats. This was the dawn of modern advertising and urban life, a time when Times Square was transforming from a quiet neighborhood into the electric capital of the world. Over a century later, the lights may be brighter, but its role as a symbol of ambition hasn't changed. This isn't a royal garden party, it's the beach. France, around 1900. Back then, a trip to the seaside was less about swimming and more about being seen. Notice the elegant dresses, parasols, and formal suits. Hardly what we'd call beachwear today. Most people didn't come to dive into the waves. They came to socialize, stroll along the shore, and show off the latest fashions. Chairs were set up in neat rows. Umbrellas provided shade instead of sun, and dipping your toes in the water was considered daring. This photo captures a time when leisure meant elegance, and even at the edge of the ocean, society's rules followed closely behind. Today, bikinis and board shorts rule the sand. But once, this was what luxury looked like. This photo was taken in 1919 on the streets of Paris, a city still trembling from the aftershocks of World War I. Here we see U.S. Marines standing proudly beside massive German cannons, trophies of a war that changed the world. Just months earlier, these weapons thundered across the Western Front, symbols of devastation and power. Now, they stand silent, dwarfed by the very soldiers who fought to stop them. For Parisians, this sight was more than a display. It was a promise that the nightmare was over, that the victors had brought peace, at least for a time. But look closer, the faces aren't celebrating wildly. There's pride, yes, but also exhaustion. a reminder that victory often comes with a heavy price. You're looking at one of the most sacred places on earth, the Garden of Gethsemane, captured in 1898. Nestled at the foot of the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, this quiet grove of olive trees holds centuries of history and faith. According to the Bible, it was here that Jesus spent his final night in prayer before his arrest, a moment that would change the course of humanity. In this photograph, the garden looks timeless. Ancient walls, winding paths, and olive trees whose roots may date back thousands of years. Pilgrims have walked these grounds for generations, seeking peace, redemption, and a connection to something eternal. Today, the world beyond these walls has changed beyond recognition. But here, in this sacred silence, history still whispers. What you're looking at isn't a carnival attraction or a parade balloon. It's a weapon of deception from World War II. This giant inflatable octopus was part of an elaborate military strategy to mislead enemy reconnaissance. During the war, the Allies became masters of camouflage and psychological warfare, creating inflatable tanks, fake airfields, and even rubber artillery to confuse Axis spies and pilots. From above, these massive decoys looked like real threats, forcing enemy forces to waste time, fuel, and ammunition on targets that didn't exist. This photo captures a surreal mix of creativity and survival, proof that sometimes the strangest ideas can turn the tide of war. Imagine looking down from the sky and seeing this monstrous shape. Would you believe it was just air and fabric?